Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Here's Johnny.
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys.
Killer Reviews, second time in video format. So this is their first time seeing Kevin in the flesh on our channel.
We have 3 people.
It's a handful on our small little table.
You're full now. You don't have room for anybody else.
Small little table. This is our max.
We can't add any more.
We max out at 3.
We're at the kids' table.
So we gotta have Jimmy separately if we want Jimmy on one of these.
Yeah, we'll have to Skype him in or something, even though he's in the other room. Well, Killer Reviews, first of the month.
And this is
the people we asked the people suggested.
And the interesting part was
sort of.
we kicked this movie around, and then you asked, and somebody suggested
the first suggestion.
So we knew that it was
So Shane K on Twitter, thanks for suggesting this one. But we are going over Willy's Wonderland, 2021.
Cage Man.
And for those who don't know what Willy's Wonderland is, stop listening to the podcast right now. Go watch it.
It's on Hulu. It's going to be on the TV.
You
right
don't have to pay for it. As long as you have the basic version of Hulu, you can watch this movie, and you have to go watch this movie. This is a glowing review from Seamus. I'll just tell you that right off the bat. Spoilers.
I think it's like $4.99 on Prime Video.
I cannot wait for you to experience this.
Action horror comedy directed by Kevin Lewis.
I don't know who that is.
You should know him from other things such as blank. He hasn't done much.
I was going to say, I have no idea who he is.
He's done small things.
He's done, I think, writing and other stuff, but he hadn't been director since 2007, Third Rail or something, I think.
Yeah, and then this was written by Geo Parsons, who, if you check out how much stuff he's written other than this, you would find a goose egg as well. This is the only thing he's written. And then produced by Nicolas Cage himself, which is why he was so protective of the script, because he fell in love with it, he attached himself to it, and when this was originally written, we'll go into that later.
I will start by saying, you bring that up. I'm not sure it takes a lot for Nick Cage to fall in love with the script at this point, because everything he's done over the last 5 or 6 years is so out there and so over the top that I don't think he gives a shit. And a side note, if you haven't seen the trailer for his new movie coming out in theaters, and it's all about him playing himself.
Oh, yes. He plays Nick Cage.
It's like being John Malkovich, but done not as good as being John Malkovich, and I cannot wait for this movie. So, I love Nick Cage.
So we got that going for us tonight. We're talking Willy's Wonderland. Before we get in, we should crack some beers. These were provided by Kevin tonight, so thank you, the guest of honor, coming in clutch.
Yeah, because I don't buy beer anymore. Apparently,
well, this one fits.
This is I think every episode we've done on the camera on YouTube, I haven't provided beer, so I am.
We're learning as we go.
Totally behind, so I will do my best for the next episode to actually provide something. But
So this one, what do we got going on? This one, we obviously purchased this from the.
So we have the
you
same.
You have the same one. Did you get the same beer? 3 of the same? Oh,
well, no, I only got 2 of this one.
Oh, all right.
So,
okay then.
So there'll be an odd man out.
Yeah. So I have the odd can.
If you want to explain this real quick, I'm going to go show a little close-up version of the can art.
Yeah.
That's
so
why it's very appropriate tonight.
It's the name of the beer is Everhaze. It's an India Pale Ale with cashmere, citra, and amarillo. And it's from Tripping Animals Brewery, which everything I've had from them, I think, has been really good. And it's a Florida brewery.
Well, this would make sense. Florida brewing with this alligator. And the alligator...
Well, it plays
will come
into...
into play later.
Yeah, it will.
And what do you have, Seamus?
So I have this one. And the only reason I picked it is because it's got a black can, or black anodized can, or at least the top is, and I think it's pretty cool. But this is also, did you say that one was by Rodent Creature? Or
this is Tripping Animals.
Oh, that's Tripping Animals. So this one is Resident Creature Brewing. It's called Second Coming. I like the can art just because it's super artsy and dark. It looks like devil characters of some kind falling into a portal.
That's fitting, it's fitting too
This
then.
fits in
So
there.
it's pretty fitting
Fits
for
very
this as well. Yeah, I don't know. The can art looks really cool. It just seems like a pretty much a normal hazy IPA. It's got Strata in it, which I've never had before, but it's got Sabro and HBC, which are pretty common in a lot of IPAs. So I'm excited to try it. Ooh, it actually gives the artist of the can art. So Marissa Pickett. I don't know who you are. I doubt you listen to our podcast, but if you happen to, your art's pretty sick. So thank you for providing that for the can.
Man, let's crack these things open.
So I guess we can
let's
pop
give it a
them.
try. A little synchronization. 1, 2,
hold on. Wait.
3. There we go. Gotta love the synchronization. Right
Normally, I'm the one that pops it too early. You know, I have that problem, but
there. Oh, just pouring out. It looks murky. Looks nice.
did you say yours are IPAs too, or no?
They are.
Yes. So, I was going just off of the color and the smell from pouring to name this. Did we say this is like a New England style, like Citra hops? Citra hops, yeah. It's
Cashmere, Citra, and Amarillo.
Amarillo, okay. That gives me that very New England. I feel like you always find those crazy good, like New England IPA style. I do like that.
I mean,
style.
they're not calling it that, but it
But
definitely could be. It's not going to be I doubt it's going to be a fruity.
No, but I get a lot of that
Piney.
Citra. And,
I didn't happen to mention that Resident Culture is from Charlotte, North Carolina, so the Queen City. So, go Panthers, even though I'm not a Panthers fan.
right from Doral we are.
Hey, at least your Panthers have a chance now, because, and I don't know if you haven't heard the news, but Tommy Boy is no longer in Tampa. So that division's wide open. Not that this is a sports podcast or
Pretty
anything
hazy,
like that.
kind of dark.
This is, I mean,
Cool.
with the blinky light activated, you can't really see.
Yeah, you don't get a
yours is,
blinky light.
Sorry if you're
It's
sports
okay.
or not. Let's see. No, that one went through
no
the
blinky
wash.
light.
Alright, cheers.
Cheers.
Willie's Wonderland and Nicolas Cage.
And Nick Cage
Which
being
apparently was originally going to be called Wally's Wonderland, and they changed it.
Which I kept referring it to as such without really knowing
I wonder
that
why.
fact. So, let's fire this up behind me real quick,
Well, first,
just so that we we'll catch up as
what'd
we
you think
talk,
first
I'm
taste,
sure.
though?
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about
We
the
didn't
beer,
talk
did
about
we?
it. I'll just fire that up just because we tend to
So
talk
we're not gonna talk
pretty-
about the movie yet, but
we tend to catch up in the movie pretty quickly, so it'll give us some ease.
It's, to me, a little dank grapefruit. Not sweet. Kind of like...
I don't get a lot of that like that lemony New England
No, it's-
IPA.
It's
bitter.
I get grapefruit citrus, which
Yeah.
is kind of...
which is what you want.
It's not
It's
as penny-ish like the coppery
all the
IPA.
metallic. Sometimes you get that
No.
metallic.
I like it. I feel like this would be, and that falls into my Hidden Springs ale love, that like something like this coated with some like milk sugar at the end would be really nice, like smooth tasting beer.
Yeah, I mean,
Dude,
I
yeah,
don't.
that
I
would-
obviously don't have that one, but a lot of times it's the resin mouthfeel too. That resiny mouthfeel.
A little
that
bit.
kinda
I
you
get like a
the
dry,
coating.
unsweetened grapefruit is what I get out of that.
But no,
Which I like
this.
sometimes. Sometimes those Hidden Springs where they add that lactose or the sugar or the vanilla, they add it to everything, and it becomes, after a while, I get like that sweet, creamy burnout. So sometimes you
Yeah.
want these dry, like he said, sometimes they're resiny and piney.
Yeah. Gotta have some rainy days to appreciate the sunny ones. So, I guess before we get into this, we should kind of figure out we were kicking around the idea. So we seemingly know Seamus's opinion of this movie.
Well, spoiler warning first. Again, see this movie. Don't listen to this podcast before you see it, because you really have to experience this movie.
yeah, this is a fun ride for sure. And I forgot before we even get into anything, we are filming now, obviously for YouTube purposes. So subscribe, like, comment below what movie you want to see us talk about next month, because this is a reoccurring thing. Each month, the first of the month, our first episode, we are talking horror movies. Usually we try to time it to some sort of anniversary, whether it's a new release or if there's a funky holiday. February left us with not much to work with, so it kind of gave us a chance to branch out and choose something really funky, with that being Willy's Wonderland. So, like I said, comment below if you want to suggest a movie to us. This was a suggestion as well, so we do listen to you. We do interact. But we were tossing around the idea of kind of guessing if somebody enjoyed this movie or not, before we actually got everyone's opinion. So Seamus is obviously
It's not going to be hard to figure out
loves
how
this
how I
movie.
felt about this movie.
So that's pretty easy right there. And I think Kevin, this is a movie that you fell in love with. I think this is a wild ride. It is out there. It is bananas. And I think that in a few moments we'll find out your true opinions of the film, but upon first watch. But I think it's safe to say that I'm also in that boat as well. So I guess we'll get into that before we start breaking down this in a more comprehensive way. Overall, what did we think about this movie? First off, obviously, Seamus had a fun ride with this.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I say that completely unironically. Like, I don't say that like as a joke. Like, obviously, this movie isn't taking itself seriously, which again you've heard before on this podcast. I love that about movies, is if they know what they are and they don't try to be too serious with it, then I typically like it. But this one's just a fun ride. Like I said, anything Nick Cage is in, I'm typically on board with.
Yeah.
Just because I love Nick Cage and he's insane and it's great. There's a couple other movies, and there's 2 on Shudder, which again you should check out. I forget the names of them, and I'll tell you after the podcast. But it's just the same type of just out there wild movie with Nick Cage as just his lead, who he just exists for the purpose of existing to drive the plot along, and it's amazing.
Well, if
So,
there's
yes,
somebody
I love this movie. We'll get into ratings at the end, but this movie was awesome.
Kevin, what do you think about this thing?
I enjoyed the shit out of it.
I saw
gonna say.
Dude, that one was coming. This thing is...
I started watching it. So a lot of the movies we watch, you're watching it, but you're kind of watching it with the eye of you're watching it to talk about it, to do this. And so sometimes I'll watch the movies that we're watching again to review, and I'll be kind of taking mental notes. And when this one started, I started making some mental notes, and then I just stopped, and I just absolutely became nothing but a viewer and enjoyed the shit out of it.
This is an absolute ride. This is a movie that you put on at a party with friends to make a drinking game or, just laugh along. This is, in 20 years, 30 years, however long it takes to secure that cult name, this movie will be there with them, with the Rocky Horrors, with all that stuff. I think this is well on its way of being just a straight up fun movie. And we're going to get into spoilers now, but a movie where the main character does not say a single line is brilliant. And you would think that it would be annoying, maybe not understanding his story. I mean, you understand enough. You understand exactly what you need to know about the janitor, and that's all it is. It's a simple point A to point B movie, and that's what I really do enjoy. When movies come up with these ridiculous concepts, as Willy's Wonderland is, and they understand it. It's ridiculous, and that's it. We're not going to convolute it with a bunch of ridiculous stories and crazy characters and try to make it seem like this is sort of realistic in any sense. It's just, it is what it is.
Define crazy, because there are some crazy characters in this movie. But
there are, but they're basic.
But going along what you're saying is that there's some great lines, great one-liners in this movie, and there is. But we can't put past or bury the fact that our lead, our only real actor, doesn't say a word other than make grunting noises and
There's
has
one point where
has
grunts a little bit.
pseudo-sexual relations with a pinball machine. The fact that he is basically a mute lead the entire time makes this movie even better. I know some people.
I went back and forth on that. While I was watching it,
I think
does
it's
this
great.
add to it? Does it detract from it? Did they need to do it? Does it add? I went back and forth, but he totally brought the character out. You understood the character. He did. So if you just quickly thought back on the movie, you wouldn't necessarily think he didn't speak. You'd almost think well, no, he told the whole story. But then you're like,
oh wait,
he told the whole story,
He did.
but
Through acting.
without saying a word.
So Nick Cage is kind of a joke.
Well,
at
he's
this
a meme-
point.
he's a meme of
He's a
himself.
meme of himself now, and
But he knows it.
And that's what's great about him is he knows it. That's why I said in the beginning where it's I think he just picks scripts where he can kind of just be crazy, and it'll work. Now, a lot of people make fun of that, and they immediately just bad dog a movie because they think, oh, great, it's another straight to VOD Nick Cage.
He's going to be
schlock. It's going to be stupid.
He's going to be the cagey Cage. And,
But because like he does that, then he does a movie like Pig last year, which I don't know if you guys have seen that movie.
I haven't, but it's also on
not a
Hulu.
horror movie. It's a drama. But that movie might be one of the best movies of 2021, but people won't watch it or will just immediately think it's going to be crazy crap because it's Nick Cage and this is what he does.
Yeah.
But he's so good. He's so good at like giving you like a legitimate, heartfelt, dramatic role in the craziest of stories, and at the same time play the schlockiest 80s and 90s action horror.
Well, this was
Thing,
again supposed
whatever
to
this
be making
is.
fun of the whole 80s.
This was
And it must,
genre.
yeah, it had to have been.
No, it was. I saw an interview with the
Okay,
dir-
yes,
the
they did,
director.
so they did say that it
Yeah,
was supposed
this
to
was
be.
very. I mean, from the get go, it's like 80s, like westernish, but like drum beat music, like because the shots, it was very like the silent cowboy comes to town and shoots him up. You know, like.
But the thing is,
they
too,
had that perfect like you got to have the boot framed scenes.
yeah. So
And it's very oversat. It's the very like
so
like
you
orangey tinted like
so you
framing.
bring that up, and there's a level of stylization that you get from like Tarantino films or what he was inspired by, a lot of the classic like the classic not ninja, but classic like kung fu movies of the 70s. Those, like you just said, those fast, quick cut, close up shots of different things. Because a lot of those 70s kung fu movies were inspired by 60s western, like 50s and 60s westerns,
like the
John Wayne style
spaghetti
movies, spaghetti
westerns,
westerns. So they took a lot from that, and then Tarantino and that whole stock, that whole group of people took a lot of that from those kung fu movies.
Yeah,
and this
they,
is totally playing off
they-
of all of those inspirations.
From start to finish, they love the lens flare in this thing.
Yeah,
There
and
was
it's
more lens
so-
flare effects
Yeah.
everywhere.
It's I almost call it like acid washed. Like it's very
Yeah.
like
It was overtoned.
very
it was just,
overtoned, overdone, very hectic. Makes you kind of feel almost like uncomfortable with how quick the shots are and how they speed everything up.
Yeah.
So like obviously when the car's doing all the shit the car's doing.
It's like pretty much just a car commercial for Corvette or
But-
whatever
right,
that is.
oh, yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's sped up. You can tell that it's done at like 1.25 speed. So it's like it's really kind of like disorienting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they do that because they're playing off those inspirations.
And it's fun too. I
And
think
it helps that
and like a lot of those
Cage
shots,
is
like
insane.
this movie is shot with a lot of B-roll, and like obviously I think that's
Yeah.
obviously just used as
So
filler.
did you
It's
do
the
the
pad time.
synopsis of the storyline?
I went a little step by step, sort of. So I mean,
There's not a lot
I got to a certain point. and
Can I
I
ask you a
kind of
question before we go any
broke off
further? So we're at the scene when he first gets to Willy's Wonderland, and we're skipping around a little bit.
with Tex McAdoo.
But Tex McAdoo, this is the preacher from Beer Fest, right? Where they're doing the beer games in the basement with the preacher.
I looked at his IMDb and I
pretty
didn't
sure
look
that's
too
him.
far, but it could be.
It
But
looks
he
just
wasn't
like him.
in a lot. It didn't pop up on his top.
I don't know if you guys have
IMDb.
seen Beer Fest.
Oh yeah, I have.
Okay,
yeah,
so I don't
yeah.
know if you know like who I'm talking about, but I thought it was him. I
So
couldn't be sure.
essentially, so far, what we've missed
I digress.
so far in the movie is it opened up as a shot of like the Willys
You
commercial,
didn't miss a whole lot.
and we see it's pretty much like a Muppets Chuck E. Cheese like
I was going to say
reject.
it's obviously
It's
for
Chuck E.
someone
Cheese.
that knows Chuck E. Cheese.
Yep.
It's definitely
It's-
played
it's-
off that kind of.
It's on a
an
TV
establishment.
screen, and then there's it's a lot of fast moving action shots of a couple that are also wearing the Willy's Wonderland shirt, and up to this point we're left just wondering what is going on. It's very eerie music, in your face shots, and it's just, and then you hear the children jingles in the background. And I don't know which song was playing at that time. It could have been the birthday song or the "Everybody has a fun da da da." It is something, but it was very very like subtle in the background, just to give you that like little sense of something is wrong here.
And a few of the songs, like some of them are real songs, but a few of them they wrote just for this,
Yeah.
which were phenomenal.
Perfect.
They did a great job. The Six Little Chickens, the birthday song.
Yeah,
It's
and then you hear like a little laughter as one of those people gets pulled away, and then from there we cut right to what I said was like an '80s style Western electro drum music mashed up with something from like Fast and the Furious 10 Texas Edition. We are introduced to none other than the janitor, portrayed by Nicolas Cage, who is speeding down these back roads and all of a sudden blows out tires. And the first reaction to blowing out all 4 of his tires is to pop the trunk, grab some punch,
His energy drink is
punch
The energy,
punch,
which is
energy
never
drink.
explained at
just
all.
a fistful of caffeine
And he
for
just
your
pounds
kisser.
it.
on a very specific schedule.
And so that's
Yeah.
that's one of the things I really wanted. I just wanted to know if it was a timer or like a heart rate monitor that goes off if it goes below a certain level, and he has to
I'm pretty sure. I think it's just his watch or something that's
every
beeping.
hour,
or
every
whatever.
30 minutes or so.
Again, one of the things that I kind of wanted answered, but the guy that when he puts him in, he's like, "Don't forget to take breaks."
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, is he only doing that because the guy told him make sure you take breaks? 'Cause
Right.
That,
And I'll
already
say
done that anyway.
Right. And I'll say this much. I don't know about you guys, but I watched this entire movie from start to finish, expecting to get some sort of payoff at the end, where like, oh, he was a kid. Like,
From there,
20
that's what
years
I kinda was
ago,
thinking at some
and that
point,
he,
too.
he was actually coming back because he knew what was going on
Yeah.
to murder all these machines. Because he just kind of like knew, like he didn't know that it was happening, but you can kind of tell
He wasn't surprised.
He wasn't surprised by it, and then like the first, we'll get to it, but the first robot that he shows up, he just like murders it.
Oh,
like,
Mortal Kombat
almost
fatality
immediately.
style.
So like I almost was expecting to find that out, but you never really get that.
in his car, I believe there was some sort of military ID.
He had dog tags.
Dog
hanging
tag.
from
So
him.
like you are to assume he's military at some point. So not that adds much to his character because it doesn't really explain why he's okay with killing animatronic characters that have come to life
No, he's
possessed
Nick
by the
Cage,
devil.
and he's a
But
badass.
nonetheless, we're left knowing that he has a special set of skills. Oh, wait, Taken. Wrong movie. So we are then waiting for a tow truck to come, obviously, because he blew out all the tires, and the tow truck comes, and Nicolas Cage does the most Nicolas Cage thing by standing directly in front of the tow truck as it slams its brakes on. And we are introduced to the tow truck driver, who I'm not sure.
The Slim Jim smoking.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was like one of those, self-rolled cigars for a while.
Slim Jim.
Just Slim Jim. So it took me a little bit to figure out, and it does change sizes during the time their car sets some continuity error right there on the Slim Jim. I was noticing that. But you know who we somehow tie everything we talk about to another movie we talked about before. But do you know who I think this character is grown up maybe 20 years down the road?
No.
This is probably the kid from Thanksgiving. The fat kid. It's got to be him grown up. It's got to be. The way he talks. But yeah, so we're introduced to him, and then he's kind of just over talking Nicolas Cage, noticing that he's not talking. Let him know that, oh man, he must have, some local kid stole some zigzags from the cop a couple months ago, and he must have found them.
Or there
and
was
we
a
can-
there was
we
a
can fix it
chase
up.
and they lost him.
Yeah, something like
Because he
that.
tells the sheriff that I brought you back your zigzag.
Yeah. And then from there, we kind of are introduced to our pseudo hero, Liv. It's kind of like the protagonist and stuff, or antagonist, whatever. I always mess those ones
Protagonist.
up. Protagonist, but she's living with seemingly her guardian, because it's like a old white lady, and she's a much younger kid, so it seemed a little off, and there wasn't a full
But
mother-daughter
you
relationship
get
there.
the story eventually.
And we get the story there for sure, but at first glance, it was a little like, is she just arresting this girl and like locking her in a trailer? Is there a guardianship? Is there parent? But we do come to find out that it is some sort of guardianship. She locks her and chains her up to a pipe in the trailer, which I'm not sure pipes in trailers are that strong that you can't just jam that thing out yourself, but she couldn't. So she calls for help. Her friends end up coming over, and I think we're a little
just
bit past
past it,
their
they were-
introduction.
yeah,
So
at the trailer.
we are introduced to this cast of nameless, characterless, who cares, and a bunch of nonsensical characters that we don't really.
Pretty
Well, two of them
nondescript,
we don't
except
need.
for the one trope blonde goofy
Yep,
girl,
one
twirling her
blonde. Yep.
gum, and she
went
was the
through-
one that was totally cast for a very specific trope type character. Where
Yep.
the other ones just kind of were
Nameless.
like I said, nondescript.
I mean, they have names, but for me, they're nameless because they're just fodder. That's all they are. They're fodder for the villains of this movie. So then we finally arrive to Willie's, backtrack a little bit. We were back to the the truck drivers, like
Car
actual
repair.
location. He's given them the whole rigmarole of, oh man, yeah, I can, this really took him out. I can fix it for you. It's gonna be $1,000, and it goes to credit card. Oh no
Cash.
no plastic here. We got cash only. And of course, the one ATM's busted. Like,
No internet service out here.
We were gonna get the internets, but that just fell through. So we got that whole thing going on, which at that point, like, that raised my red flags. I was like, okay, this is
A setup.
they're all in on it. I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I know those old town. Everyone's like a conspirator. I get it. This is where we're headed. But he tells them that there is a way to work off the debt, and it's a roof. There's a roof to put over your head. It's not much, but it's something. Nicolas Cage silently agrees, I guess, and goes with them, and we are brought to Willy's Wonderland. We are introduced to the millionaire tycoon style character of
Tex or-
Tex McAdoo, who I'm pretty sure that's a fake mustache. It looked incredibly fake. I could be fooled, but who knows. But he says that in order for him to pay off the car, which he will do, he'll have the car ready in the next morning. Nicolas Cage, which we refer to now as janitor, is going to be staying overnight in Willy's Wonderland.
Cleaning.
That's it. You clean the place up.
In the morning, your car's here waiting for you.
Doesn't seem like a setup at all. This guy is a trustworthy guy, I would assume. Why not?
Chains them inside the building.
Yep, and chains the doors. So that's where we're kind of caught up to now. I think if I have to look behind me, he's playing some more
He
pinball.
finds
He loves
he
pinball.
finds in the kitchen. He finds the pinball machine covered up.
Yeah, while he's
that's-
cleaning. And man, this guy gets to work. He gets in, starts spraying, degreaser. He's like tearing through this place. It's looking
That
beautiful.
part, that added to it for me. The satisfaction where they kind of did like again, they have like B-roll or the lulls between the action were cleaning scenes.
Yeah.
And when he was like starting in the like the restroom and it's all graffiti and
Yeah.
grime, and as they showed like almost the time lapse cleaning,
Yeah.
that was like
It's
satisfying.
It's therapeutic. It is.
And in the interview I saw with the director, his whole thing was while they were shooting, their script list or their scene list.
Yeah.
His panic was he was always saying, we need to grab some more cleaning footage. So he's constantly like, clean this, clean that, and there's almost like they're making things grimy and dirty, so he could clean again. 'Cause he was afraid he wouldn't have enough cleaning filling. So one of his things, he was obsessed with making sure they shot more and more of him cleaning. And that when I heard that, it kind of spoke to me. I'm thinking that
It makes sense, though.
I in addition to the storyline, I really was. I'm like, I want this place to look like it's brand new by the morning.
And
that was the one thing.
Yeah.
If it didn't happen, I was like,
Yeah, and that's the funny part, too, because, he'll clean up a spot, and then there's an attack. And I'm like, oh, come on, he just cleaned that. Like, to go somewhere else.
another perfect part as he's getting ready to clean.
Yep.
New shirt.
New shirt every time. I love it.
It was great.
That's one of the small details that I do like, and it is funny that he did stress the amount of cleaning shots they needed, because it is a basic storyline. So when you're filming something so basic,
I can literally just sit here and watch the movie and like let you talk.
He's testing him. He's like,
it's
so good.
hits him with the broom, the mop
He just
handle.
turns around and stares at it like.
so
He steps up to it.
I'm
like,
pretty
what?
much caught up now to where I was.
Oh, let's get to the part that actually matters in this movie.
The first character we get introduced to is Ozzy the Ostrich, who bites the dust pretty hard.
So the fact that you know the names of the animatronics but not the human characters,
Well, these
makes
are
this
more
movie
characters.
so much better.
These are more important characters than Chris or whatever. But yeah, Ozzy the Ostrich, and these are not ordinary mechanical creatures. We're come to find out. As you can see above my head right there, Nicolas Cage is battling Ozzy the Ostrich, is a mechanical creature of some sort.
Yeah, it's an animatronic character
Yeah.
from Chuck E. Cheese.
That's one of those
type thing.
sing-songy, dancey things and stuff like that. And we are introduced into these amazing fight scenes. I think he takes this one down with a broomstick and rips its spinal cord out like it's Mortal Kombat fatality.
Bro, it's legit.
style.
It's like
And he's covered. He
It's
gets
basically
covered.
Mortal Kombat, but with like animatronic
He gets
figures.
covered in oil.
They have a lot of oil in them for some
There's a
reason.
lot of
Tons of
oil
oil.
for these things,
Well,
even
it's
though
a
they're
stand-in for blood.
even though
Come on,
they're
guys.
possessed. But sure.
And so I'll say this: when I had heard about this movie prior to actually agreeing to review it, So I had always wanted to watch it. I just hadn't really gotten around to doing it. And I was kind of worried that, like, oh, it's Nick Cage fighting animatronic animals.
Possessed.
So my thought...
Possessed,
possessed, whatever. But
satanic
I
animals.
was worried that it's going to be low budget and that they're not going to look good. But these things look
They move.
scary as
It's
like hell.
very low budget.
They're
It's
all
super low
stunned.
budget,
And the
but they
director
look
said
really good.
that he enjoys low budget movies. He prides himself on seeing how low
Can he
of
do
a
it?
budget and doing
Yeah.
it on budget. And he said when he first started this, when he was working with like the production company and stuff,
Right.
and they were talking about animatronics and how you're going to create the animatronics, and he's like, I'm not spending a year making animatronics. He's like, it's going to be stuntmen in suits.
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah,
obviously.
he's like, I embraced the low budget.
Yeah.
He's like, what?
But
you're
you know
gonna
what's
spend
funny?
2
That's what
years,
you're- and
2
that's what
years
you're doing.
building something, and he's like, and then we get a, hey, look, get a shot. It's
Yeah.
like,
No.
it's just dudes in suits.
Yep.
I mean,
Just
but
simple.
But that
simple
looks,
to it.
but that makes it look so much more like just creepy. I think it
Yeah.
adds to the creep factor because like you know that it's clearly a suit, but it looks a lot creepier.
No, it definitely adds to it, and that's the funny part too is the screenwriter wrote this, obviously being very low budget. I believe he wrote this, and that's why he wrote the main character to have no lines because he wrote it for himself. Because he wasn't in the mindset of, oh, someone's going to read this and Nicolas Cage is going to play this part. He was writing it just because it's a fun story
Yeah.
and he wants to be in it, and he wrote the part assuming he would play it. I wouldn't say for himself, but
So you say he didn't write himself as a bald trucker
Yeah.
just to have sex with a blonde
no,
actress?
he did not do
Oh,
that.
okay. Not like we've ever reviewed a movie that
Was
did that
that,
before.
was that Leprechaun or was,
No, that was
Thanksgiving?
no, it was Valentine. It was the Valentine.
My Bloody
My Bloody
Valentine?
Valentine, the remake.
the
remember?
3D? Oh, yep.
Little bit of a throwback to last
Yeah,
year.
so where do we end up to?
Oh,
so
we're
he's
back to
back
cleaning
cleaning.
again.
More cleaning.
Oh, but now
people.
he's cleaning the pinball machine.
Okay, so he's starting to do that, and there is an obsession with the pinball machine, and there's a couple things that like you were mentioning in the beginning, I'm on the fence of. Do I want to know the reasoning behind stuff, or am I okay with just like leaving it as it is?
But
And
this is
me
why-
making my own assumptions.
This is why the entire time I thought they were setting up some big twist or reveal that he's there for a reason, and that he
Well,
was
that-
actually going to
Well,
the
that
place
reveal
as a
happened
kid.
a little bit with Liv.
Kind
it
of.
turned out that that's why she's there. is
Yeah,
because-
I mean and that's fine, but I think they could have easily done it where it was just him, and he was like a kid when his parents were slaughtered by these. Like you didn't have to have the kids.
I could have done without all the
Because
children.
why is he so like you're right? Why is he so obsessed with a pinball machine of all these like
characters
released
and
characters?
and essentially his obsession is just to get the high score because during like
Which is
towards
funny.
the end he's doing like a crazy dance, which is all improv, by the way. This was all
not
improv by
surprising,
Nicolas
not
Cage.
surprising at all.
But it's a big success dance. Yeah, and he's just doing all this, but it was so
It's a
neat,
little,
like, 'cause he
little
set the
Pulp
high
Fiction
score.
like at the dance.
Yeah, it
he
was very
doing.
it was very
it's
80s.
It's awesome.
But also too, one question I forgot to ask is how long into this movie did you think, wait, has he spoken yet? Or did you come to the realization that he hadn't spoken yet and you
So,
became aware of the fact that maybe he won't?
Again, I suffer from the fact that I knew about this movie prior, and I knew he didn't talk the entire time. I had watched a review of it months ago on one of my YouTube channels that I
Yeah.
follow, so I knew already ahead of time that he wasn't
Okay.
a speaking part. So I watched this just because I wanted to see it, and it's
Yep.
amazing. But so I mean, I think if I had not known, it would have taken me a minute.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have taken me too long.
It's your birthday.
And it's time to have some
I think by the time he got there and agreed to like do the cleaning,
Yep.
by that point I knew if he had spoke, then that would have negated the whole why would he have been silent all that time.
Yeah,
So by
right.
the time he met the guy and agreed to clean,
Yeah,
you knew it was going to be a thing.
I was about that mark. Like, I think that's like the 30-minute mark. I paused and I was like, man, he hasn't said anything yet. And like the first couple times, like you get it. Like maybe he is that quiet type. Like and that guy, the tow truck guy, did talk over him a lot. So it seemed like maybe he's just more submissive.
So if they had done the ride scene where they rode with it, he could have been just like, this guy doesn't shut up.
Yeah.
Right.
But then eventually,
And then it kept going. I was like,
it would have made no sense.
Okay.
If why would he talk now?
But I
now?
think what's cool, but and what's interesting and works well about this movie is
oh,
that
I do love this part.
is that like because all the other characters are the speaking parts, I think they're purposely obnoxious and they're purposely talking like almost over him, even though he's not saying anything. So it kind of adds a contrast to your main lead who doesn't say a word, which is weird. But then you got all these other people that do have speaking parts, and they're all obnoxious people.
Yeah.
In some way or another, in one way or another. And I think that kind of plays on each other. Side note: this is the part in the movie where I was watching it. And my wife comes out of the bedroom
And sees him fighting an
and-
animatronic
no.
gorilla.
We haven't gotten to the gorilla coming out yet, but she stopped. This is what she does. So she leaves the room after putting our youngest to bed. She stands there for about 10 minutes, watches whatever I'm watching to make a comment about what I'm watching, and it's this part where the thing says something to him.
Want to play hide and seek?
Yeah, want to play hide and seek?
Yeah.
So she's watching it. She's
Gus
watching
the
it,
gorilla.
and then the gorilla comes popping out of the thing. She goes, "What the hell are you watching?"
The fact that he comes out with the plunger, I was like, how could you? At this point, I am totally just
So
enjoying the shit.
in it.
I'm like, I'm not taking any
laughing
notes.
my ass off.
I'm gonna have to watch this again.
My
to have
wife,
anything
she
to
goes
talk
in the
about.
kitchen, she goes, "You watch the weirdest shit." And she
Yes.
sees the girl, she goes, "No, I'm gonna have nightmares. I'm going to bed. Good night."
Yeah.
So good.
So he fights with Gus the
This
gorilla.
might be the best fight scene in the movie. I'm just gonna
This
put
is
that out there.
one of the better ones, and it ends with a American History X style curb
Oh yeah, curb stomp right on the toilet.
which just
and he
covers
just
Cage in
cleaned
blood.
too. He just like
And yeah,
cleaned
he
the
destroys
toilet.
the bathroom again and then cleans it
Oh,
again.
duct tape fixes
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna
Duct
say,
tape.
are we gonna talk about how he
Duct
uses
tape,
duct tape?
fixes the walls, it fixes mirrors, it fixes his eye like
injuries,
he was Nelly in
ribs.
2005. He retapes his ribs, and he just changes his shirt again. They have probably 10 shirts to go through.
Yeah,
just
why not?
In case the guests are
But
coming in.
you notice how he dismembers? He dismembers the thing and
He
puts them in
pulls, he
trash
pulls their
bags.
spines out like.
And my favorite part
Which
is
is
he bags them and he drops them by the door in front of the
Which
stage.
again, which makes you.
And it's like, here, look at your fucking friends die.
Which is why this is brilliant. So the reason why this is brilliant to me is that like it leaves you questioning who is this guy. Like clearly he's dismembered bodies before. He knows
Yeah.
how to do that, even though they're animatronic.
But he's here to
ripping
kill.
spines out and dismembering and bagging them up like a
it plays
serial
to
killer.
your part. Maybe he was there as a kid, and you're supposed to just
That's what-
infer that.
maybe that's what
because
I'm-
if you keep in mind, like when they first pull in and they do the scene where he takes his glasses down and he looks up at Willie
Yeah.
on the sign
He's
before he's inside the
nosing.
sign. They're looking at each other, and then when he goes in originally, and that the first animatronic he fights, he turns around. And he's not even really that shocked that it's standing there.
Yeah.
And he's like testing it. He's like, yeah? And he's like poking it, going, come on,
so
what are you
good.
you gonna
You
just
shit,
you
you
gonna just
Come on,
stand there?
motherfucker.
Yeah. No,
So
and-
you're like, he knows.
And that is one of my favorite things, the open-endedness of it, because you could watch this from, like we did, 3 completely different point of views, and I would assume that we probably all have different versions of what this character's backstory is, and I like that. I like the fact that it's unanswered, and it's almost like
It's better than it
it's
is.
almost like a Mad Lib.
Like I'm not
You
saying
get to
that
make
like
your own story.
I'm not disappointed.
Which is nice.
I'm not
Yeah.
disappointed that it got all the way to the end and they never really did anything with it. I think that's great. I love when movies do that, especially movies that aren't taking itself serious.
Yes.
Like you don't need to spoon feed me everything. You don't need to explain it to me. He's just clearly trained in some way. He knows how to dismember things.
this is a simple movie.
and it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's a simple, ridiculous movie, and those are the movies that require, not require, but it benefits having characters like this. If you're looking at like Marvel or like Oscar-nominated movies like with fleshed out stories, yeah, you might not want to have a character with no backstory that doesn't talk. But a movie like this, it fits perfectly.
But they do, in other areas, give you the big info dump. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right.
How they became possessed with the backstory of the murderers that decided instead of going down, they did the satanic ritual. Mm-hmm. They gave you that whole backstory. Then
Yeah.
the sheriff gives you the whole backstory of what the town did to try to make a deal.
Right.
With it, yeah.
So they filled you in probably too much detail with the
Yeah.
long, that like I said, that long backstory.
It was a quick,
and then with like the main character, no backstory.
yeah. It did.
But I think that's what's awesome about
No,
it.
I think
I
it
really
worked.
do think that
All
adds
of the
to
things
it.
that I tried to like make mental note of eventually to like have something to really point at, they could have done better with some of the fights. Like they could have upped
Yeah.
the game with the fight. Did they really need that really stereotypical blonde character? Did the
Right.
no talking work? Things like, but all of those things are just reaches to find something.
Yes.
Right.
Because you
To
almost
discuss.
want to sit down here and say, I enjoyed the shit out of this.
Yeah. Thank you. Good
See you
night.
next week.
Peace. No, because again, it's like any movie where you want to tear it apart in some way. You want to find the faults with it. But the thing is this movie just it plays into its faults. And I know that it's cliche to say, oh well, you know, they're intending to make these characters like stupid and annoying and super cliche and everything else. But I think that this movie does in a way.
It works though.
I don't think the
'Cause
characters
you've
put
got
that over the
you've got
top
the-
that
you've
we
got the-
see in a lot. That like over the top, like almost characters
Right.
of the
Yeah,
genre
well,
or the
caricatures
tropes.
of that. Yeah.
Right.
The group of kids, other than the blonde, was a little bit stereotypical.
Well, you get the token.
but they
you
were
get,
all.
you,
but,
get, you get the token black guy, which is in every horror movie. There's always at least one black guy who talks, you know, street and this, that,
and then
other
makes the
thing.
comment, "What? You guys never been arrested
Right,
before?"
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
You really had him say that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like,
out
that's
of all
why we
people.
passed that. But
Yeah. Out of all people, you had to throw that in there.
That's what you do, and then you've got the badass lead character, which is the female. Obviously, she's the
but
badass.
some
lead.
movies we watch, the characters are so
Right.
characters of themselves.
It's
you
almost too stupid,
You can't
yeah.
get past it. So that's
Right,
what you're
exactly.
watching.
And this one doesn't do that.
I didn't do that. Like,
Exactly,
I took
yeah.
the characters for being characters in the roles.
I
they had
honestly
in there
think
and-
the only scene in this movie, we haven't gotten to it yet, the only scene in this movie that I truly felt like wasn't really necessary was the obnoxious the sex scene was kind of like stupid.
Yeah,
like,
the pseudo sex scene.
you
But
didn't
that was
need
part
it.
of that same character. They
I-
literally put that one thread
Right.
in there to say, well, we're going to be part of that
That
whole
cliche. We
long
gotta hit
list
the
of
cliche.
movies
Right, and I get that.
made the funny.
I mean,
part.
I guess what's different about this movie than a lot of 80s movies and early 90s movies did was that the token black guy never really got the hot bimbo. It was always like the jock white kid that always got
Yeah.
it. So it was kind of different that he was the jock at the same time, but
And I
it's
saw
still-
a review that mentioned it, and I couldn't remember if it was true the way it played out. Someone said during that sex scene, it goes between them, and that's the point where Nick Cage is like doing
Yes,
the
yeah,
big
yeah,
all
yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember the two scenes,
It's
but
funny.
but when I watched it, I missed that
That they were mashed
that
up.
and I'm like, great, I missed out on the brilliant.
Yeah.
Visual at
The
the
editing
time,
of that was
but,
perfect.
but if they did
the
do
nice
that,
thing
it's
is you
perfect.
can go back. I'm gonna totally rewatch this movie again because I have to go back and rewatch
Well, and this
it
is
again.
it's a quick watch. It's an hour and 29
Yeah,
or
it's
so.
fast.
So what we did miss was the kids did arrive to Willie's, and their plan is Liv and her band of friends we're gonna burn.
Liv's plan is to
Liv's
burn
plan
it down.
Is to burn the place down, which I don't understand. Today was the day to do it. That was the one thing I was like. You grew up knowing this place was evil,
and you know
but
that they're
today was
trapping
the
people in
day
there, too.
to do it.
Well, the backstory, they originally, when the town figured out what was going on, they were trying to demolish it. But anybody who went there to demolish the place
got murdered.
got
yeah.
murdered. So they couldn't destroy it, but why could
Why
they?
can she? Yeah. So just a little bugaboo there, but nothing crazy. But yeah, they try to they start throwing gasoline on it, and the kids are yelling at each other. Oh, why don't you go gasoline the other side? You're getting gasoline on my gasoline. And he's like, okay, all right. These are just the generic teenage
I think
tropes that
they're
they're trying
supposed to
hit.
just be like you said. You're supposed to like not give a shit
Yeah.
about them,
But-
and you don't
Yeah.
in a way.
More boot scenes.
Yeah,
more
Nick,
boot scenes.
Nick Cage boot
Nick Cage
scenes.
boot scenes.
But Liv realizes that Nick Cage is still in there, so they're like, wait, we got to get this guy out of him. We can't commit manslaughter. And the funny part is, like, half the group was like, nah, fuck that guy. Right?
But the thing is,
You go from like in
Well,
a small
but you're
town-
kind of like
But they come from a town that feeds this building people for the last
Right.
yeah, and they know that,
I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I kind of was just like, yeah, exactly. Fuck him.
Who
Like he
cares?
doesn't want to leave. Let him burn. Screw it.
But my other
burn
thing
the
too is
fucking
like,
place down.
it feels like like in this town, like I feel like you can get away with burning down a building,
yeah,
like
clearly.
very easily.
But there's like two cops. There's
Like,
two sheriffs.
killing somebody if you're
Or there's
not
one,
like
there's like a sheriff and a sheriff's
if
deputy
you're like
who wear
not
different
in
uniforms.
with the cops and maybe, but like
No, he wasn't a deputy. He
he was
a
some-
state
oh,
police.
he was backup.
he was-
Sorry, I
because
missed that
he
part.
said, "Why did you guys call in state police for a backup for a night when nothing's going on? What are we gonna do tonight that
That's
you need
right.
a backup?" And
Right,
she's
I'm
like,
skipping ahead.
she's like, "You see that phone right there? We're gonna pray it doesn't ring."
yeah. So Liv decides she bangs on the door and gets the character of Nick Cage's attention and tells him that he needs to get out of there. He's not safe. He gives her the fuck you look
walks
and goes to
away.
start cleaning again.
They're like,
And she decides that she needs to find her way in, and the others need to stay outside and find a way out for them once she gets him.
which you're outside already. So
Which she busts. Yeah, she busts into. Yeah, and like the way out would be the way that you find in. So like they should probably go with you.
And this is true with all movies. It bothers me. It's just one of my pet peeves, where they're going through the ductwork, and in these movies, For one, the ductwork is pristine clean, which if you've ever seen the inside of ductwork,
It's not.
and I can get past that. But no ductwork is 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide. And she's in there, she's crawling.
first
There's like
space.
2 feet above her head, there's 3 feet on either side.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I get it, it's a movie, but that's
not gonna fly.
I mean, I
You can't have the badasses coming down
I can
through the roof
understand
and
being
you're-
attacked by animatronic creatures, but can we make the
I
duck?
can't get past
Can we
the
get
duck
this
Can we
right?
make the
Fucking dusty or
ductwork
what?
Can we make the ductwork a
And
little
he's
smaller
there
and
to
dirty?
he's there to clean this decrepit place, but the only place that's already clean. Maybe he already went to the ducks.
Yeah,
That must have been it. He
Anyways,
must. Nick Cage must.
That's
no,
one of
it's
those
not
things that it just.
It is one of those classic things that you're like, wait, no,
And
you
this-
ever been in
it
one?
was
Stick your
like-
head in your units.
In this scene, like this movie, it was giant. It was literally like
I know.
5 feet
Yeah.
by 5
It
feet.
was like
quickly.
another
The prop
room.
guy obviously had no idea what he was building.
Yeah, so we, like I said, we're catching up again, but we're at a good pace now. But Liv is in the ducks, and we're introduced to Allie the alligator, who starts going towards her,
Well, we
attacking
said
her.
that
which
our
we said
beer
this will
would
tie in,
play into
and
the
they do
alligator.
tie in. Allie the alligator is one of the
How many characters were there? 8?
8, I think.
It's a lot.
Yeah, there's a
Some
handful.
of the reviews I saw, people said they probably would have been more interesting to have more elaborate fight scenes, longer fight scenes,
Less characters.
and have less characters.
I'm
but
fine with the characters. I think that they all. I think there's I think you can distinctly remember a moment for each character, and if you can do that, I don't think there was too
8
many.
characters, and this was Nicolas Cage's 8th horror movie.
Ooh.
Oh, a little
So
bit of trivia there for
maybe
you.
he.
Maybe each character represents a
Oh,
past
you have to go back and look at each of his
horror
movies. And
Maybe
see
you
if
do.
there's some-
Probably not, but we're gonna do that. So Liv was in the air ducts being chased by Allie the alligator, and she falls into this like Wonderland-y kind of area, which is the house of Siren Sarah, who
Tinkerbell
who is like Tinkerbellish, which is probably the second creepiest one.
Which just made me.
She
think,
also has the best line in the
so
movie,
is
too,
the,
by the
is,
way.
the, is a
She does.
siren
We'll get to
like? Is
that.
there some like real well-known story? That
Well, sirens. The sirens were
The
more
Odyssey?
of like the Greek mythology where
Okay.
they sing to
They
warn
sing
the sailors.
No,
if
they
it-
don't sing to warn the sailors.
Well, they sing to bring you as a
to
sailor.
bring the sailors to the rocks.
Yeah,
and then when they
I
come
knew
in,
that there was
they
some
kill 'em.
backstory to it, so I
Yeah,
just didn't
so-
know what it was. Something to do with the sea.
And that's in the siren. The fun too, because that was the sirens at Hollow Scream was their
Oh.
icons of
Which
of
makes perfect
sorts.
sense. Sea World.
Yep. So that they sing to bring you in, and they kill
So
you
it's
with
all
the rocks.
sea based.
Yeah, very
Okay,
nautical
all right.
themes. Which didn't really. I mean, she was
This makes
more,
sense because
she was more pixie.
Now we
She's
got
like
the
a
weird.
pixie
Now we got the
fairy,
weird
yeah.
killing mass murderer guy.
Oh, this is where we kind of understand the actual
This is the
story.
backstory where they give you the whole like the background of.
Yeah. So Nick Cage kind of finds Liv, the character, in that little woodland area, and they finally connect.
Just connected some dots here.
Yep.
So back when they're showing you the guys that were originally when they were alive and they were killers,
Yep.
they would wear the suits themselves.
Right.
So it almost plays like so now when you see the animatronics in modern day and they almost look like people wearing the suits.
Yeah.
Sure, it wasn't intentional, but you can almost say, "Oh, there's the tie-in."
Yeah.
Like, when the animatronics go by you,
Yeah.
and it looks like there's a guy wearing a suit. Well, you could almost say, "Oh, well, that's
It was a guy.
that's the real guys coming through in this possessed animatronic." I'm just connecting dots that aren't there.
I love the local police SWAT guys that show up in like Suburbans
to attack the
Yeah.
truck.
to attack the Chuck E.
To
Cheese.
check Willie's. Well, yeah, that's a little bit of a reach there. But we're finally getting the story from Liv as to what the fuck is going on at Willie's and why these animatronics are coming to life. Long story short was Willie and his essentially carny folk were running this children's party central
Restaurant,
place,
yeah,
restaurant.
arcade.
Probably got great pizza there that tastes like cardboard.
Watered
Hot
down-
dogs. They
watered-
sold hot dogs.
Watered
Hot
down.
dogs.
That was a
beer.
big thing.
Hot dogs were in a couple shots, but essentially there was all a front. They would bring children and families to the super fun room, super fun secret room, super fun room I think it was, and they would murder them. Willie would murder them. Willie the Weasel would murder them, and then there would be missing persons reports. They would file up, and it got to a point where the police finally stepped in. They raid the place. And then upon raiding it, they find all of the people working there had committed a satanic ritual suicide, and those familiar with satanic rituals said that it pushed their souls and their energy from the living to non-living entities. So they pretty much took over the bodies of these animatronic characters that were at Willie's the whole time. And it closed down. So then obviously they reopened Willie's a couple years later. Tex McAdoo was one opened it. I don't know if it was 1 year later,
Probably got a good
couple
deal
years
on the
later, or
building.
whatever. But people started noticing then that the animatronics were off. Sometimes it was accidents. Sometimes they would say the wrong things. And Seamus brought this part up, but this is where one of my favorite lines of
Best
the whole
line of
movie
the
is.
movie.
Wanna fuck, fatty? And Siren Sarah leans down to a fat little kid eating pizza or whatever.
Who was trying
'Cause he went to grab his
trying to
boobies.
grab-
He was trying to grab her boobs or his boobs because we don't know who took over whose bodies in the
That's true.
in the spirit,
Could very well have been a man.
the
in that
satanic
suit.
spiritual swap up of bodies. But yeah, we get into that part. They eventually closed down Willie's because of all these pseudo accidents, and the townspeople essentially go there and just shut the place down. Then they realize that if they just shut the place down, that those characters actually leave Willie's to go kill the townsfolk, kills the children, and they finally go in person to cut a deal with Willie himself, saying, "We will feed you, leave our town alone." And that's kind of where we are present day.
So they make a deal.
They make a deal with the weasel. With the weasel. And I think in that flashback, I could be wrong, that's when we learn Liv's backstory, because that was the end of my notes now, so now I'm just going off of memory right now. But if we didn't get it then, I will give it to you now. Liv's backstory was that she was a child that was given up to the secret fun room, and her parents were killed, not her. And
By mistake, she was left alive somewhere. The sheriff
Yeah,
found
well,
her.
it
and
turns
that's
out
where
that
the cop found her. That's where we have that.
Well, the very opening shot, the two
pseudo-guardianship.
parents that are killed, the two people that are killed,
Were the-
turn out to be her parents.
Yeah. So that's where Liv's need for vengeance comes into play. Is from having her parents killed by Willie and his
So now,
slack jawed.
talking lines. You were talking about like memorable lines.
Yep,
There's
yep.
a couple of good ones. It's like, oh, he's not in here to be their victim or whatever.
He's not in there. He's not in there with them. They're in there with him.
He's not trapped in there with them.
Yeah.
They're trapped in here with him.
Which is a direct line to one of my favorite comics, which was Watchmen.
Yes.
The Rorschach character.
It is.
He gets put in jail. I don't need to go into crazy detail, but he's a vigilante. So obviously he's put people in jail, but he's a piece of shit. And he gets put in jail, and they're testing him. And then he slams a lunch tray and he kills a guy in there.
Yeah,
and
he gets
pulled away. He's like, "Don't forget, I'm not in here with you. You're in here with me." And it's like, oh, I remember that one. That one's one of the better lines. So
And not as great a line, but you're officially on staff.
yeah,
That's pretty good.
they're putting them on staff.
They give him the Willie's T-shirt.
And that was like during that replay we got like a bunch of cutscenes of Tex McAdoo offering up copious amounts of people to Willie, and it cuts to the line of "You're on staff, you're on staff, you're on staff,
Oh, right.
you're on staff,"
Which
And
is what he said to him originally when he gave him the T-shirt
Yeah.
to do the cleaning. And then the line, I forget what it was, the sheriff says to the state trooper, "Put your balls on," or something. What?
"Put your balls on. We're going to Willie's."
I can see that. I can see that making it its way into conversation.
That was our caption for the post today. We're letting people know
Oh,
we're
was it?
doing.
All right.
Put your balls on. We're reviewing Willie's.
Perfect. So this is the scene where I can get a second chance to see the interlacing between her and Nick Cage on the pinball machine. But I mean, you think you'd know that, like, having sex during a horror movie, you don't make it.
Yeah,
you don't
it's
make it
not
out
gonna
alive.
end well.
It's just this whole scene. I don't know. I thought it was weird because like clearly they were dubbing the noise. Like she wasn't making the actual noises in
Yeah.
here. It was dubbed.
And they are in. If we skipped a beat, they are actually in the super fun room.
yeah, they're in the room that was like
Oh,
kids were
Because they
murdered.
saw the sign and said,
They're
"Oh,
like,
it looks
"Ooh,
super
this
fun."
looks like super fun." Yeah. But Allie the alligator had left the vents and gone to this room, and
Yeah.
that's the character that's in the background, kind of watching them. Definitely watching them. And from here, I just remember it as an onslaught of attacks and fighting, and attacks and fighting, and we're
But paced well, meaning that like there'd be he'd kill it. He'd get into a battle. He'd kill it, and then back to cleaning.
Yep, and back
And
to
I'm like,
cleaning,
oh,
back to
now
cleaning.
he's backtracking because he killed one of them. There's oil everywhere.
Yeah.
He needs a new shirt, and that kind of set the pace.
Yeah.
And you were back to. So they broke it up. It didn't just it could have just broke out into him fighting the first animatronic, and then it could have been battle after battle after
Yeah.
battle. But
And there was-
they didn't.
They spaced out nice. And I think we're at the point in the movie now where we can skip ahead a little bit because it is to the point where it's like fight, clean, fight, clean, fight, clean. A couple of the moments that I'll point out that I remember in no particular order was that Liv's sort of romantic partner, I guess, or I don't know if they're connected or not, whatever, Chris was hiding in one. And that's where we're introduced to who I think is the most terrifying character, which was Cammy the Chameleon, who was
He fell for it.
terrifying, who spoke to him as if she
was the
wasn't
victim.
going to kill the shit out of
She
this
was
kid.
almost the victim. Like she was trapped on the evil side.
Yeah,
and she
like, they
wanted to
make
be.
fun of me. They come help me. I'll help you. And
Didn't take long. He fell in
hook,
fast.
line, and sinker. This
That
kid
was like-
stood right up and was like,
Although
"Oh, don't worry. She's gonna help us."
For tiny fraction of a second, I thought maybe the storyline was going to go that she was being honest, and she
Yeah.
was on the other side. And out of all of these, she really wanted out.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no.
It would have made sense for me. So it works two ways. Like, as a chameleon, it makes sense that, like, and I know I'm looking too deep into a movie, I shouldn't, but the chameleon is, like, adapting to its surroundings, so it's kind of playing that.
Right.
But I feel like the siren character should have been that character versus the chameleon, because as we just talked about, the sirens, they pull you into danger. They sing to you, they tell you what you want to hear, and then they devour you.
But the
I think it's
chameleon
an easy
works
swap,
too.
but
It's like
chameleon
you can
works
never
for
trust
too.
what they are because they are.
They're always
changing all the
hiding in their
time.
environment. But this has probably the best kill methods because it kind of has the tongue. And that's like the most. I don't want to say changing, but like all the other ways that the characters would kill wouldn't be from. I don't know how to say this, but the mechanical chameleon wouldn't have a wet tongue built into it. So that's like maybe the satanic part, being possessed, being able to like.
Barbara, you said
outsource.
you're thinking too deep into it. You're thinking too deep.
Yeah, that's a little too deep. All right,
But
I'll
no,
go
you're
back.
right.
I
Like
can't
that the animatronic wouldn't
wouldn't
have a
have
tongue.
that giant tongue thing
It
that
might have something, but not yet.
maybe a little felt.
And then there was a
template.
knight, right? So that's
Oh yeah, there's a knight,
Nighty Night.
which might be one of the best kills in the movie. I know it's simple, but it's just so.
Yep, Nighty
Boom.
Night. I think he is probably one of my favorite characters, and I think we can talk about that at the end. But this is one of the battles for the ages when Nicolas Cage is
Just slamming his
going
head into the wall.
to fucking work on Nighty Night. And he's going through tables and he just does a full-on decapitation. Nighty Night, Nighty Night. UFC
So good.
Knights. Go Knights. Lots of Knights in the area.
was the knight the guy on the top of the car though? Who was on top of the car?
No, that was the
That's
Spanish
Tito,
dude.
Tito the
Oh,
Turtle.
Right.
Yeah, the Spanish turtle.
Yep.
Now that scene might have been like the only real jump scene. Was that the one where
Yeah, because it like you don't realize
it shows
it's there.
it jumps in the window, right? Which
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was I
and
think the only
slaughters
like
the state trooper.
Yeah.
might have
so,
been the only the jump scare in the movie. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
really
would say
wasn't
so.
much. But yeah, throughout the story. So then we get to a point where the police arrive, and they get Nicolas Cage at point blank with a gun, and the lady was like, "God damn it!" Essentially saying, "Why couldn't you just die? Why'd you have to stay alive?"
She just said, "Why couldn't you have just
Yeah.
died?"
So they hold him, they handcuff him, and she takes the daughter away because she doesn't want her pseudo daughter getting hurt.
Adopted, whatever, foster.
Whatever it is, but and she lets us know that all the other kids in the place have been killed.
Stupid kids.
Stupid kids. So they take the girl out. The woman stays guard of the place to make sure that Nicolas Cage dies because they handcuff him there. They leave him for dead.
He don't speak for us, Willie.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he's not one of us, Willie. We swear to you.
Yeah.
She's offering him up to Willie, and then we cut back into Nicolas Cage. With his hands handcuffed behind his back, going against Siren Sarah, and I
But first,
think Tito Turtle maybe.
No, it was the
first
chameleon.
he's got
Cammy the
to he's got
chameleon.
to put on the jukebox.
And then he gives a little heel tap to the jukebox, which perfect, love it. It reminded me of Shaun of the Dead when they hit the jukebox and Queen starts playing of the Don't stop me now, cause I'm looking at time. If it was that song, I would have had a blast with it again. But he takes on 2 of these things, and he does kill them with ease, but 2 at a time. He pretty much sits on the siren's neck.
Yeah,
and
first he starts off with
snaps
a
him out.
headbutt, I think.
Yeah, he just straight up headbutts him. And then we go to the scene of him just ripping the handcuffs off himself, going to town on the chameleon, and there we are. And then at that point, we're down to just Willie the Weasel, which we haven't seen move off the stage, and Tito the Turtle. But Tito the Turtle, we're going to jump around out of here now, but Tito the Turtle is on the car, which has the state trooper taking Liv away from the crime scene.
And she's convincing him that he should do the right thing.
That he needs to go back, saying that he's essentially a
murderer, and he loses his shit.
He calls her a murderer, and then that's where we get the jump scare of Tito the Turtle reaching down, pulling him out of the car.
Actually, to be honest with you, doing the Michael Myers, because Michael Myers made that famous with on top of the roof, smashing the window with his hand.
So it pulls him out of the car. She gets out, goes to shoot him with a shotgun, and Tito the Turtle actually has the shells himself. And I believe he killed the state trooper.
He did, yeah.
He killed the state trooper. And she pulls her inner Nick Cage and starts beating the shit out of this turtle thing and leaves it to dead. The turtle did take the keys and throw them into the woods, so Liv starts walking back towards there instead of searching like a 10-foot radius just to see if she could find the keys to drive.
Here's the chameleon scene.
Oh, there she is. And that is probably the more terrifying of the characters. But Liv just walks towards, back towards the Willy's Wonderland.
We gotta at least mention the my balls line.
Oh, the turtle. My balls.
No mas.
Por favor, no mas. No mas, por favor. I think the person, whoever wrote it, had about as much Spanish training as I had, and pieced it together the best he could.
Half a dozen Taco Bell commercials under his belt.
Yeah, I thought he was going to say.
Part was
I was waiting for like Yo quiero Willy's Wonderland, like. Como se dice Willy's Wonderland? Like, I was waiting for that, but oh my balls! No mas por favor, no mas por favor, no mas, no mas, no mas. Is the only lines that the writer essentially knew for Tito the Turtle. But we are back, and it's essentially Nick Cage kind of putting the finishing touches on cleaning this place up, knowing very well that Willy's going to attack at any moment. But he's stacking the chairs. He's putting the ketchups and the mustards out. He's got
it's almost in defiance.
Pinball. He's
that's why
edging him on.
I think that's why I enjoyed the cleaning. I think it was defiance.
Yeah.
Because they expected him to go in, do a little bit, get killed. They go in the next day, the place is still a mess.
Which is why I think
they knew. I thought that just instinctively, I think it was, even if he kills all of them, that's great. But I think the in-your-face part was going to be, which what happens, walking in there and the place is perfectly clean. And it's like, oh yeah, you thought clean the place. You thought,
right.
Yeah,
and
you thought that
I was going to hide behind the fucking ticket.
I think this goes back to the brilliance of not ever really getting any idea of what motivates this character. It could simply be, I was hired to do a job to get my car fixed, and you motherfuckers won't let me do my job.
That's a good.
So
point.
he kills the guys.
So he wasn't
to keep doing his
fighting.
job.
That's good. He wasn't fighting the animatronics like because they're evil. Because it's like I don't even care if you've killed people. It's like you're not stopping me from getting my car back. It's like you're standing between me and my car. That's it.
Right.
That's
and I'm gone. I'm out of this town.
And then bye. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So we get that shot of like all the chairs are up.
This is us making the movie way deeper than it really is.
Yeah, we know the final countdown is about to be playing. But Willy attacks. He scratches the shit out of our character, the janitor, which I thought at the time, I was like, oh shit, he's going to die. Because I thought he wasn't just getting scratched. I thought he was getting, like, gutted. But no, they were just scratches. He gets kicked around. And he returns. He takes the rest of his energy drinks, throws them in a little sack, takes 2 sticks, like broomsticks, tie them together. Goes to town on Willy the Weasel.
We have to at least mention that Willy completely fucks up the sheriff. She gets fucked up. And I laughed so hard when that happened.
So I thought it was great because she was trying to throw him to the wolves.
Yeah.
Oh, Willy, he's not with us. He fucked up. And it's his fault.
That's clear.
And Willy's like, well, your job was to make sure this didn't happen, bitch.
Yeah. How about you find some people that
she gets like Gordoed like right up the middle, like just ripped in half.
And then
that's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
To hit like the typical 80s tropes of like horror. just like the squirt
the
of
blood.
like very fake
the
blood.
torso goes in half.
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
And it's just the
Just the
mannequin
legs.
bottom of the.
And it's like a water fountain from
It's
like
so
the
good.
90s, just spraying shit.
So good.
But yeah, so we're back at the part. Willie is just getting his ass kicked by Nicolas Cage, and he just full on, if I remember correctly, grabs the head and rips the head off the weasel and starts bagging him. And I think from there he just kind of cleans up, and we get to the morning time where the tow truck guy, and this is the one another question I had. The tow truck guy's out doing donuts in the guy's car.
He's ripping around in the donuts.
If this is like a ritualistic thing, why did they fix the car and why
Well,
did
he
they
was
bring
gonna
it to
give, he
Willie's?
was gonna
though?
give it to
Yeah,
the
no, they
text.
they kind of explain that the text
Because he
guy
goes,
Is gonna
gets,
take
he
the
gets
car,
them
he's gonna add it to his collection.
because he said, but he says that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, another toy to add
Yeah.
to the collection.
So like, is that just they have, like that's just their meeting point? I guess he couldn't drive it to his house, or he had to
well,
rush
they
to
have
get
to
it
go
fixed,
there though, because
or
like, they get to go in and see the big reveal.
yeah.
You know?
So we get there. They're both there. They're ready to go check in, and we see that Siren Sarah was outside. So
she was in
never,
a bag, but she was still
So
alive.
she was
He
in
put
a,
them
she was
all
in the
in the
dumpster. She was in
Oh,
the
right,
dumpster.
because the woman sheriff stayed there to guard the building, but she decides to take a nap.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up to see Nick Cage going out to the dumpster,
Yeah.
and she's like panicking, like
Oh,
he's
shit,
still
he was supposed to
alive.
be dead, yeah.
And then he just like stops and he looks at her,
He does a little wave.
and he just
does
goes like a really up, but it's a really
It's
weird,
just-
like
he
it's
doesn't
kind of-
wave,
because
he puts his one
because
hand
it wasn't
up
like
slowly.
a tough guy like
No, it's
no,
like,
it was
almost like a-
kind of like an awkward like.
There's times where like he is this badass character, but there's times like that where you're like, he seems like the awkward kid at the lunch table.
Yeah, he really.
And does
so,
it just happen, or is he that good?
But I love it though. That's what I love about it.
It's a good
so
mixed
weird.
match of characters. But yeah, so they go in to check out the place, and to their surprise, this place is primed.
Yeah,
this
it's
is
like
ready.
spotless.
This is ready to open. You
And
can
I'm
open
saying
today.
through the whole like once the whole cleaning thing started, that made me so happy.
Yeah.
I was kill all the animatronics. Sure, that's probably coming, but for God's sake, please
place better
have
be
the
clean.
place perfectly clean by the morning.
Because doesn't Tex like walk in and he goes, son of a bitch. Like
Yeah.
he like actually
They're
like,
actually
Then they're
surprised.
happy because
There was like,
they-
shit, we
oh,
can
we
hot-
opened this place.
hot
He got,
diggity,
he
I
got
gotta
rid of
open
the
this
he got
place
rid of
up.
the possessed animatronics.
We're going out.
and-
Drinks are on me. And we did get a shot of Siren Sarah with looking at the gasoline that was left over from the kids the night before. Tex and Show Truck Guy are in the car celebrating, and then Siren Sarah's head pops up, says some pretty forgettable line because I don't remember it right now, and essentially blows their
Blows
entire
the
car
fucking
up,
car
and
up.
they're all dead now.
But she doesn't catch fire. She just blows back.
blows back. So
the
sequel.
old what's
Yeah,
sequel?
yeah,
But at that point, Liv is seen walking back towards the Willies, and it's already daytime. Nick Cage kind of gives her the look of, get in, fuck this place, let's ride off to the sunset, Western
You're
style.
describing that whole thing without telling the most important part of the whole scene.
Oh, the Tito the Turtle when they.
No.
Oh,
What's the song that's playing?
what it?
Freebird.
It's Freebird.
Oh, Freebird. Yep.
I
yep.
mean, all of a sudden,
Just like
if
House of a Thousand
I
Corpses.
leave
Yeah.
here- and I was like, at that point, I'm like, this
That's
is
where-
the fucking best movie I've
That's
ever
where
watched.
probably half of their budget went, was paying Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Freebird.
pay the
But it's very much like House of a Thousand Corpses.
Exactly.
Ends with Freebird as
Exactly.
but it ends in like them gunshot
and we're talking,
out in the
but
Corvette.
again, when we're talking about how this movie, the film style is super washed out, super out there, super acid, super drugged out.
Dirty.
What do you think House of
Yep.
Thousand Corpses was?
Yep.
It's again pulling from that type of thing, where it's that very grindhousey,
Yep.
like dirty, nasty.
But they're on the road. It looks like she wants to say something to him, but she knows that he's not gonna say anything back, and she just kind of holds it back, nods and looks out the window, puts the glasses on, and they're
Cracks
driving down the
open his
road.
drink.
He cracks
energy
a punch, goes to take a sip, and then offers it
Hands
to
it
her. And then we see that Tito the Turtle is still in the street walking around.
Awesome.
And they
So good.
ram this fucker and
So good.
head out of town. And that is Willy's Wonderland. Did I
Oh
sum
my
that thing
God.
up pretty good or what?
It's such a good movie. Go watch this movie if you haven't watched this movie
Boy.
yet. Why you watch this entire review without seeing it, I don't know, but this movie is
No,
phenomenal.
This should be on the
I'm
top
gonna go
of
home and watch this again tonight. Probably, 'cause
everyone's
it's so
like
good.
must watch. I had a blast watching this. On top of the story being so ridiculous and fun, the characters being so fun, I thought that visually it was beautiful. I loved that like very neon style. I have an addiction to like that 90s like neon roller skating rink style atmosphere. I love that. It's from the childhood that I had, so it is very
no jokes
personal
aside.
to us. That like I would very much enjoy.
Or all jokes aside, this movie is very well shot. Like technically, this movie is well done. Yeah, the acting's a little cringy in parts. The effects are obviously
not nearly
very low
as
budget.
cringy as Mini. So.
But I mean, we've seen other movies that are worse when it comes to a lot of that stuff. So this movie's
That's for
actually really well made. So don't think that it's like because it's straight to VOD and it's Nick Cage. It's just some trash movie. It really is well done. And if you're into that, like I said before, that low budget, super goofy, off the wall, insane action, this is totally a movie
it's
to
on
check
Hulu.
out.
You don't need an add-on.
You have to go watch it.
So
especially if you know anything about like Five Nights at Freddy's or anything.
I was gonna say I wasn't really familiar with the video game, and the one critique they kind of gave this movie was it's just a ripoff of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Right, and it kind of is, but I don't think it necessarily just straight up rips it off. And
it doesn't. And the director's take on that was he's like, well, what people like? There's room for all of us to live together. It's
right.
like it helps.
Chuck E. Cheese was
but his thing was like that you help each other.
Yeah.
He's like if somebody likes that is into that whole Five Nights at Freddy's genre, they'll be like, oh well, then I'll like Willy's Wonderland. Or if somebody that likes Willy's Wonderland will say, oh, that he's like we should all live together.
Yeah. I mean that's essentially isn't Friday the 13th just a ripoff of Halloween.
Well, right. And
it changes a couple things, but there's plenty of room for more than you don't have to be the only one.
All these slashes ripping off real serial killers, like they had it first. Like,
and then I'm
stupid.
not sure, but I thought I heard or read somewhere that Blumhouse is going to do a.
They are. Well, they've been working on one for years now. I think it's in development hell, but
come out.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it actually.
I mean, if it does, it'll probably get a mainstream release on I don't know if this went to theaters or not because it didn't have.
I don't think so.
Box office.
The way I look at it is that if they actually do make a Five Nights at Freddy movie, they're gonna take that too serious, and it's gonna be trying to.
Yeah,
it's gonna be played up like dark and serious, and like this is supposed to be scary. When in reality, it's animatronics murdering you. It's supposed to be stupid and off the wall, and this is exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Like you get everything you expect is what happens. Except for maybe getting certain things out of it, or getting a story out of it, or something like that, or like I said before, expecting some sort of twist with the main character when in reality there really isn't any type of. It's just a dude trying to get his car back. I don't look at it that way. I think this movie is just unbelievably off the wall, and if you go into it with those expectations, you're gonna love it. If you go into it expecting like a legitimate hour-and-a-half long serious horror movie, you're not going to get that because it's not a horror movie as far as I'm concerned. Like it's got horror elements.
It's got horror elements. But
I don't consider it a horror movie. But that's just me.
And we'll get to that in our Fear and Beer ratings.
Yeah.
But before we do that, any other final thoughts? Any fun little tidbits or trivias or anything that we kind of caught on during this movie that we haven't touched on?
Well,
yet?
I have one trivia thing. Well, not really trivia, but insight. But I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna save it for my Fear rating. So.
Okay. So if you actually before we do that, one quick little question too. What was everybody's favorite character? Animatronic character. I don't care about Nicolas Cage or the editors, but what was your favorite animatronic character?
Mine was Siren.
The Siren one?
Because she had the best line in the movie. I think she was the most badass of all of the all the animatronic characters. But I think I liked her the most. I think.
I hate asking my own questions and having a tie answer. I really liked Nighty Night. Very small role, but he had I think the most badass weapon. I think he had the most intricate.
And he had the most he had the most. We talked about there not being a ton of jump scares. He had the jump scare kill.
He really did. He seems like he was.
You didn't see it coming, and then
he seems like he was more of the brute.
Yeah.
Aside from the gorilla, but I'll go with Nighty Night for mine.
Oh, that's tough. This is the favorite.
Do you go favorite line? Do you go favorite fight scene?
Yeah, I mean the chameleon part was pretty good, where she was talking to him and tricked him.
I mean, she's got the best kill with the wrap around the neck and twisting it with her tongue.
But then the best fight sequence,
right?
The plunger thing with
the gorilla,
so good.
But does that make that? Was that the character, or really was
Gus
that was more like Nick Cage's?
But it is fun, yeah.
Based on the fight scene, I'm gonna say the gorilla.
That was
the restroom. Because the restroom is where the cleaning scene really started.
Yeah, it really
you started seeing the time lapse
Yeah.
cleaning. He's like, he's gonna clean this whole restroom. The graffiti's all gone, and then next thing you know, he comes out of that stall with the
Plus the
plunger.
sink, yeah.
Yeah,
that was
I'm gonna say the gorilla and that whole scene is like one of the great scenes.
All right, so time for our fear and beer ratings. If you aren't familiar with these, our fear rating is how scary the movie is from 0 to 5. And our beer rating is how much did we enjoy this movie? Again, 0 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
So for a fear rating, Seamus, what would you give
Yeah,
us for
so
a
my fear rating, I'm not going to give it a 0. Like, I know that I think a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not scary. It isn't. To me, it's not scary. I'm going to give it a 1, though, 1 out of 5. And here's my reasoning why I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5. I think for certain people, there is a real phobia, and it's actually called... do I have it up here?
Acantholytosis-ophobia.
No, it's like autonomophobia or something like that.
Okay.
So there are people that are actually legitimately scared to go on like Disney rides because they're afraid of animatronics.
Oh, they hate Avatar.
They're scared of animatronics. So I think for a certain group of people in the world, even if it's like 10 people, this movie is going to give them legitimate nightmares.
Yeah.
My wife wouldn't watch it. She doesn't watch anything, but she wouldn't watch this because it would give her nightmares.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, I'll give it a 1 out of 5.
There is a fraction of
There is
people.
a fraction of the population that will actually watch this and have legitimate nightmares caused by this movie. Because I'll say this much. Again, to me, not scary, but the animatronic characters are actually really creepy looking, especially with the bird with the eyes and stuff.
Ozzy the ostrich.
Or like when he's kind of like
I do know the
near
name.
the
Most of them.
beginning, where like he's kind of starting to do his thing, and you see them kind of like moving in the background. Like it's super subtle, but it's enough to kind of give you like a heebie-jeebies.
Yep.
So I can see why this would scare somebody. So I'll give it a 1 out of 5.
I was gonna go pretty low too. I'm gonna give it a 0.5.
Okay.
Because I don't want to give it a 0. A 0 for me is a comedy movie. A 0 is 0 instances of horror elements. And is this movie scary? No. There is some tension that is caused by the eeriness of the characters. There are, I don't want to say jump scares because they could have been jump scares had the sound been appropriate. But it's not that kind of movie. It's not trying to scare you, but there are horror elements. I mean, if we're talking about satanic cult members killing themselves, it's actually a horror movie. So I'm going to give it a 0.5 just because it dips its toes in the kid pool. Kevin?
Fear, I'm going to give it a 2.
Okay. All right.
So, and there's why too. One of the things is we're desensitized, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
What would I mean, we watched some scary ass shit, and nobody's giving it a 5. Like, so really, what would give you a 5 then? That movie doesn't exist, and so it might be more creep factor than fear factor. But the fact that, like, just knowing that when they're completely static when they first get there, and you're looking at them and they're all dingy and creepy,
right.
and just that alone. And then when they're like missing or one's moved,
there's no
or when they're
6.
in those kids,
Wasn't there 8?
He wasn't.
Yeah.
Was he there a minute ago? And he's there looking at it, and then, or even when Nicolas Cage is, he's confronting the first one, and it's standing right there, and he's hitting it, and you're like, it's gonna jump, and it doesn't move, and he hits it again, and
it's that tension.
It's that tension, and it's a bit creepy. So yeah, it's got to be at least a 2. Like I said, if not. If I gave it a 0, then the movie doesn't exist. That would give me a 5.
No.
So I'm saying it's a 2. And enjoyment, definite 5.
5 for you, yeah.
I love this.
I was gonna say I think our beer rating is gonna be pretty much the same across the board. Mine's a 5.
Mine's a 5. Let's just trip 5s right
5
there.
across
And that's
the
I think
board.
our first ever movie
5
that
across
5'd it.
Yeah,
For everyone.
honestly, I think it's the first movie we've done where we've all agreed. I think.
Yeah.
Not to say that there hasn't been a movie that we all liked,
But we all pick pieces
but
of
there's
different
reasons
things.
why
Yes.
we don't necessarily like it. With this movie, again, don't go into it with any expectations other than what you know this movie's going to be. If you go into it knowing that it's a VOD Nick Cage vehicle for him to be insane, you're going to love this movie. Now, if you don't like those types of movies, don't watch it because you're not going to like it.
We're gonna get the scene with the wave, the awkward.
Oh, here's the wave. Here it is.
Ready,
you can
ready,
see
ready,
it right
ready?
above me.
Wait for it.
She kind of she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, hey. But yeah,
that's a good way to end it.
And again, these are our personal ratings, so obviously it's not the best movie in the world. It's not Citizen Kane. We understand that.
Don't apologize. It was a good movie. You enjoyed
It's
it.
a great movie. I loved it. That's it.
it's a 5 out of 5.
The end.
Yep.
And that's all there is to it.
So that's where we wrap up on Willy's Wonderland. So thank you again for Kevin for bringing this up for the first part, and then for Shane K for following up and reassuring us that yes, no,
This is something people want to hear.
a good movie was suggested to us, and they do want to hear this. So like I said, thank you for listening along. Comment below if you have a movie suggestion for us to do next month. Next week we will be back. Me and Seamus are going to be discussing a handful of Netflix properties, because Netflix has had a partnership in the past with HHN. So we're going to be diving into some potential HHN Netflix properties that we will see next year. There's a handful out there.
How many months and days until HHN?
Oh, I don't know.
I haven't started counting yet, but I know September's the 9th month and we're in the 2nd month now. So we got a little bit. I don't want to start looking down there yet. I believe in May we hit that 100-day mark because that was our anniversary. So we're still about 180 or so days, I would say.
Yeah, we're a ways away. I don't want to rush the year, but
You can start the day countdown like right now.
Yeah, right.
Seriously.
A little timer, like the deli timer over in the corner. But yeah, I don't want to start counting down yet. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for tonight again. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. And again, this is Nick.
this is Seamus.
Kevin.
Happy
Willie.
birthday!
Birthday.
Happy birthday!
Birthday.
And cue the music.
Cursed. Cursed. To the death cursed.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.